At 11:47 p.m., someone is stealing everything she built. A single line of code. That's all it took to unravel a billion-dollar empire. Ethan Cole wasn't supposed to find it. Most wouldn't. But when you're a cybersecurity contractor who spent 6 years in military intelligence, you notice things. The anomaly was small, the threat was massive, and it was happening right now, in real time, draining data from the private system of one of the most powerful tech CEOs in the country. He had two choices: follow protocol and watch it burn, or break every rule and stop it himself. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. I want to see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in the server room hummed with a frequency that made Ethan's jaw ache. He'd been staring at the same 3 monitors for 11 hours straight, eyes burning, coffee cold in a styrofoam cup that had somehow migrated to the edge of his desk. Contract work paid well, but nights like this made him question the cost. His daughter's drawing was taped to the monitor on the right, a crayon sketch of the two of them holding hands under a lopsided sun. She'd written "Daddy" in crooked letters across the top. He'd promised her he'd be home by dinner. That was 8 hours ago. The alert came at 11:47 p.m. Not the usual ping. This was different. A subtle deviation in outbound traffic that most systems would ignore. Ethan didn't ignore anything. He leaned forward, fingers already moving across the keyboard, pulling up packet logs, tracing routes, digging into metadata that told stories most people couldn't read. "No," he muttered. "No, no, no." The data stream was clean on the surface, encrypted, authorized, but the timing was wrong. The volume was wrong. And when he triangulated the source, his stomach dropped. Executive floor, private network, Lena Hart's office. Someone was bleeding her system dry, and they were doing it from the inside. Ethan grabbed his phone, pulled up the security chain of command, then stopped. Protocol meant going through his supervisor, who'd escalate to building security, who'd contact Hart's executive assistant, who'd probably schedule a meeting for tomorrow morning to discuss potential concerns. By then, whoever was behind this would have everything they needed. He looked at his daughter's drawing again. Then he ran. The elevator seemed to move in slow motion. Ethan jabbed the button for the executive floor 3 times, knowing it wouldn't help but unable to stop himself. His reflection stared back from the polished steel doors. 32 years old, gray t-shirt with a coffee stain near the collar. Jeans that had seen better days, hair that needed cutting about 2 weeks ago. He looked like exactly what he was, a contractor who spent his nights in basements and his days trying to be both parents to a 6-year-old girl who still slept with the nightlight on. The doors opened onto a different world, marble floors, recessed lighting, floor-to-ceiling windows that turned the city into a glittering backdrop. At the far end of the hall, behind glass walls and what had to be at least 3 layers of security, was Lena Hart's office. The door was open. Ethan's brain cataloged every detail as he approached. No guards, unusual but not impossible this late. No visible cameras in the immediate hallway, definitely unusual. The office itself was lit, which meant someone was there. The question was who? He didn't knock. There wasn't time for manners. Lena Hart looked up from her desk, and for a fraction of a second, Ethan forgot why he was there. She wasn't what he expected. Somehow he'd pictured someone harder, colder, more corporate. The woman in front of him was 30, maybe 31, with dark hair pulled into a messy knot at the base of her neck and eyes that went from surprise to calculating in less than a heartbeat. "Who are you?" Her voice was calm, too calm, like she'd been interrupted by random strangers before and found it mildly inconvenient. "Ethan Cole. I'm the contractor running overnight security monitoring, and I didn't ask for your resume. I asked who you are and why you're in my office." "Fair point." Ethan moved to her desk, aware of how this looked, aware that she probably had a panic button somewhere within reach. "Someone is stealing your data, right now. I traced the breach to your system, and I didn't have time to go through channels because by the time I did, they'd have everything." She didn't move. "My system is secure." "Your system is bleeding out. Look." He gestured to her computer. "May I?" "No." She stood, positioning herself between him and the machine. She was tall, he noticed, almost his height in those heels. "You could be anyone. You could be the one trying to access my files. If I wanted your files, I wouldn't announce myself. I'd just take them." Comforting. "Ms. Hart." "Lena." Lena. In about 3 minutes, whoever is running this breach is going to realize someone's onto them, and they're going to pull everything they can before burning their access. If you don't let me stop this right now, you'll lose data you can't get back. She studied him. He could see her mind working, weighing probabilities, calculating risk. This was a woman who made decisions that moved markets. A woman who'd built a company worth billions before most people paid off their student loans. A woman who probably had a dozen lawyers on speed dial and enough security clearance to make his life very difficult if she decided he was a threat. "Show me," she said finally, stepping aside. Ethan didn't waste the opportunity. He pulled up her command terminal, fingers moving faster than conscious thought, muscle memory from years of doing this kind of work. Lines of code scrolled past. Lena watched over his shoulder, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something expensive and subtle that made him acutely aware he'd been wearing the same shirt for 16 hours. There. He pointed to a string of characters that probably looked like gibberish to her. See that? That's an outbound connection masquerading as a system update. It's pulling encrypted files from your private server and routing them through 3 proxy servers before depositing them. He traced the path. Singapore. But that's not the endpoint. That's just... The screen went black. "What did you do?" Lena's voice had an edge now. "Nothing. They triggered a failsafe." Ethan's mind raced. "When I accessed the terminal, it must have alerted them. They're trying to cover their tracks." He typed rapidly, trying to regain access, but the system was locked. Every password prompt came back denied. Every backdoor was sealed. Whoever built this security knew exactly what they were doing. "Can you fix it?" Lena asked. "I don't know. They've activated your defense protocol, the one designed to lock out hackers. Problem is, now I'm locked out too." "And my files?" Ethan pulled up a secondary monitor, checking the residual data trail. His jaw tightened. "Some of it's gone. Financial records, encrypted communications, internal memos. I can't tell how much without getting back into your system." Lena was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, quieter, more controlled. "Tomorrow, I have the most important board meeting of my career. I'm presenting a new security platform that represents 3 years of development and $200 million in investment. Everything I need for that presentation is in this computer. Encrypted, of course, but backed up?" She looked at him. "What do you think?" "I think you're the kind of person who trusts her own security too much to need backups." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. It didn't reach her eyes. "Can you get it back?" "Maybe. Depends on how sophisticated their lockout is, and whether I can break through your defense system without triggering a complete data wipe. Your security is military grade." "I know. I designed it." That explained a lot. "Then you know what happens if I input the wrong decryption key too many times?" "Permanent erasure of all data." "Yes." "How many attempts do I get?" 3. Ethan laughed, but there was no humor in it. 3. Fantastic. Can you do it or not? He looked at the locked screen, then at her, then at the city beyond the windows where millions of people were sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that in this office, a billion-dollar company was hanging by a thread. His daughter would be asleep now. Mrs. Chen from next door was watching her, again. He'd promised this wouldn't keep happening, promised he'd be there to tuck her in. "I can try," he said, "but it's going to take all night, and if I fail, you lose everything." Lena pulled out her phone, typed something quickly, then set it aside. "Then don't fail." "That's your pep talk?" "I'm not known for pep talks." "What are you known for?" She sat down across from him, folding her hands on the desk with the kind of precision that suggested 1,000 business negotiations. "Getting what I want." The next 6 hours were the longest of Ethan's life. He worked methodically, building a profile of the defense system from its architecture, looking for vulnerabilities in code that Lena herself had written. It was like trying to break into a bank designed by someone who knew every trick in the book because they'd invented half of them. Lena stayed. He'd expected her to leave, to go home or make phone calls or do whatever billionaire CEOs did at midnight, but she remained at her desk, rebuilding her presentation from memory on a tablet, every chart, every data point, every strategic projection, just in case he failed. Around 2 a.m., she ordered food. Thai from a place that apparently delivered to executive offices in the middle of the night. Ethan didn't ask how that worked. You should eat, she said, setting a container in front of him. Can't. Need to focus. You've been staring at that screen for 3 hours. Take 10 minutes. Don't have 10 minutes. She was quiet for a moment. Then, you have a daughter. It wasn't a question. Ethan glanced at the crayon drawing still visible on his phone screen, which he'd set beside the keyboard. Yeah. How old? 6. Maya. Pretty name. Her mother chose it. He didn't elaborate, didn't explain that Sarah had died when Maya was 2. Didn't mention the cancer, the hospitals, the slow horror of watching someone you love disappear piece by piece. Some things you kept to yourself. But Lena seemed to understand the things he wasn't saying. This job must be hard. The hours. It pays well. Flexible schedule, mostly. I can pick her up from school, help with homework, be there for dinner, usually. But not tonight. No, not tonight. Lena pushed the food closer. Eat. You're no good to anyone if you pass out. He ate. The pad thai was better than it had any right to be at 2 in the morning. Can I ask you something? Lena said after a while. Sure. Why didn't you just report this and go home? You're a contractor. This isn't your problem. Ethan set down his fork. I have this theory, he said slowly, that most of the worst things that happen in the world happen because people decide something isn't their problem. Someone sees something wrong and thinks, not my job, not my responsibility, and they walk away, and the thing gets worse, and more people get hurt. And everyone wonders how it got so bad, how nobody saw it coming, how nobody did anything. He met her eyes. I saw it coming, so I'm doing something. She was quiet for a long moment. That's a very inconvenient moral code. Tell me about it. At 4 a.m., Ethan had his first breakthrough, a vulnerability in the handshake protocol between the defense system and the encryption layer. It was small, barely a crack, but it was enough to get a foothold. I'm in, he said quietly. Lena looked up from her tablet. Can you access the files? Not yet. I'm still locked out of the main system. But I can see the architecture now. I can map it. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Whoever designed your security is brilliant. Every layer has redundancy. Every access point has multiple verification steps. It's like a maze where every wall is also a trap. I'll take that as a compliment. You should. It's also making my life very difficult. She stood, moving to stand behind him, watching the code scroll past. What's that? Encryption algorithm. Your design? Modified AES 256 with a custom key derivation function. Standard wasn't secure enough. Of course it wasn't. Ethan shook his head. You know, most people would just use the industry standard and call it a day. I'm not most people. I'm starting to realize that. The sky outside was beginning to lighten, that pre-dawn gray that wasn't quite dark and wasn't quite light. Ethan could feel exhaustion pulling at him, making his thoughts fuzzy, his reactions slow. He'd been awake for almost 24 hours. His eyes felt like sandpaper. Tell me about your company, he said, as much to stay alert as out of genuine curiosity. What made you start it? Lena returned to her desk, but she didn't pick up her tablet. I was working at a major tech firm, saw how they handled user data, how they prioritized profit over privacy, how they built security as an afterthought and expected users to just trust them. She paused. I thought I could do better. Could you? We have 0 data breaches in 6 years, industry-leading encryption, transparent privacy policies. So, yes, I think so. Until tonight. Tonight wasn't a security flaw. Tonight was human error. Someone with authorized access decided to abuse it. You know who? I have suspicions, but without proof. She trailed off. That's why I need those files. They'll show who accessed what and when. They'll show the trail. Ethan nodded, understanding. No pressure then. You say that like pressure bothers you. It doesn't. I spent 6 years in military intelligence. Pressure is baseline. What made you leave? He was quiet for a moment, weighing how much to share. My wife got sick. I needed to be home more. Contracting let me do that. Still use my skills, still make a living, but on my terms. My schedule. And now you're here at 5 in the morning instead of home with your daughter. Yeah, well, like I said, inconvenient moral code. At 6 a.m., Ethan made his second breakthrough. The encryption key was layered, 3 separate components that had to be assembled in the right order. He had 2 of them. The third was hidden somewhere in the system architecture, protected by an algorithm that changed every 60 seconds. I need you to think, he told Lena. When you designed this, you must have built in a fail-safe, some way to recover access if something went wrong. I did, but it requires biometric verification and a physical security key. Where's the key? She hesitated. My apartment, 20 minutes from here. Ethan checked the time. The board meeting was at 9. We don't have 40 minutes for a round trip. Then we work with what we have. He studied the code, looking for another way in. There had to be something. Some vulnerability, some oversight, some... Wait, he leaned forward. Your biometric verification. What does it check? Fingerprint and retinal scan. But the retinal scan needs a camera, and the fingerprint needs a sensor, both of which are hardware, which means they have to interface with the software somehow. He was thinking out loud now, following the logic. If I can spoof the hardware signal, make the system think it's receiving biometric data. That's impossible. The encryption on that alone, nothing's impossible, just varying degrees of difficulty. He was already writing code, building a virtual interface, trying to trick a system designed by someone who knew every trick. How much time do I have? Lena checked her watch. 2 hours and 43 minutes until I need to walk into that boardroom. Not enough time. Then work faster. He almost laughed. You know what? I like you. You're terrifying, but I like you. I'm not trying to be terrifying. That's what makes it more terrifying. At 7:30, with an hour and a half until the board meeting, Ethan cracked the final layer. The system opened like a flower, revealing everything. Pulses, data, communication logs, access records. It was all there, untouched, complete. Got it, he said, and his voice cracked from exhaustion and relief. Lena was beside him in an instant. Show me. He pulled up the access logs, tracing the unauthorized connection back to its source. The timestamp was there. The user credentials were there. The IP address was there. Everything they needed to prove what happened and who did it. David Chen, Lena read, her voice flat. My VP of Operations. You know him? I hired him 3 years ago, mentored him, trusted him. She was very still, very controlled, but Ethan could see the anger beneath the surface, cold and sharp and absolutely lethal. He's been with me since the beginning. Not anymore. She straightened, her business mask sliding back into place. Can you compile all of this into a report? Something I can present? Already doing it. Ethan's fingers were flying again, organizing data, creating a timeline, building an airtight case. Give me 20 minutes. At 8:45, Lena Hart walked out of her office in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Ethan's car, carrying a tablet loaded with her reconstructed presentation and a data stick containing proof of corporate sabotage. She looked like she'd slept 8 hours and had a team of people preparing her for this moment. Ethan, by comparison, looked like he'd been hit by a truck. Thank you, she said at the elevator. I mean that. You saved my company tonight. Just doing my job? This wasn't your job. You went well beyond your job. She paused. I won't forget that. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside, then turned back. Cole? Yeah? Get some sleep and go see your daughter. The doors closed. Ethan stood there for a moment, swaying slightly, wondering if any of the last 9 hours had actually happened. Then he pulled out his phone and called Mrs. Chen, asking if she could take Maya to school. Again. Of course, the old woman said, and he could hear the judgment in her voice. The same judgment he heard in his own head every time he did this. He made it to his car before exhaustion hit him like a physical force. He sat in the driver's seat, head against the steering wheel, and let himself feel it. The bone-deep tiredness, the guilt, the pride, the fear, all of it mixing together until he couldn't separate one from the other. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes. If you want to see how this ends, the conference room has a video feed. I'm sending you access credentials. LH. Ethan stared at the message. He should go home, should sleep, Should be there when Maya got home from school. Instead, he pulled up the video feed. The boardroom was exactly what he expected. Glass walls, expensive furniture, people in suits that cost more than his monthly rent. Lena sat at the head of the table, composed and confident, while 12 executives watched her with varying degrees of interest and skepticism. David Chen sat 3 seats down, looking relaxed and professional. Lena began her presentation. Market analysis, technology overview, security protocols. She was brilliant, clear and concise and utterly convincing. This was her world, and she owned every inch of it. Then she got to the security demonstration. Before we discuss implementation, she said, I want to address a concern that came to my attention last night. The room shifted. Ethan could see it even through the video feed, the sudden attention, the exchanged glances. At approximately 11:47 p.m., our system detected unauthorized access to encrypted company files. Lena's voice was steady. Someone with executive credentials initiated a data breach designed to extract proprietary information. David Chen's expression didn't change. But Ethan, who'd spent 6 years reading people in high-stress situations, saw the micro-expressions, the slight tightening around the eyes, the barely perceptible stiffening of shoulders. That's a serious accusation, one of the board members said. Do you have proof? I do. Lena pulled up the data on the main screen. Access logs, timestamps, IP addresses, and full communication trails, everything tracked and verified. The room erupted. Questions came rapid fire. David Chen started to speak, started to defend himself, but Lena cut through it all with cold precision. The evidence is conclusive. David Chen accessed my private system using credentials he obtained through his position as VP of Operations. He initiated a breach designed to steal the very security platform we're discussing today. The intent appears to be corporate sabotage, though we're still investigating the end goal. This is ridiculous, Chen said, but his voice lacked conviction. Lena, I don't know what you think you found, but I found everything, David. Every file you accessed, every byte you tried to steal, every command you executed. She turned to the board. I'm implementing immediate termination and turning all evidence over to legal counsel for criminal prosecution. The silence that followed was absolute. Chen stood, his face red. You can't prove, I can prove everything, and you know it. He left, security escort and all. The board meeting continued, but the outcome was never in doubt. Lena's presentation was flawless, her security platform was approved, and by the time the session ended 2 hours later, she'd turned a crisis into a demonstration of exactly why her company was worth investing in. Ethan watched it all from his car, unable to look away. When the feed finally cut out, he sat there in the parking garage, engine off, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not just professional satisfaction. He got that from most jobs. This was different. This felt like he'd been part of something that mattered. Like his decision to run upstairs instead of following protocol had changed something fundamental. His phone buzzed again. Thank you doesn't cover it, but it's a start. Dinner sometime? I owe you at least that. LH. Ethan typed back. You don't owe me anything, but dinner sounds good. He started his car and drove home, where Maya would be getting home from school in 4 hours, where he'd promised to help her build a volcano for her science project, where normal life was waiting for him. But something had shifted. Some door had opened that he hadn't even known was there. And as he pulled into his driveway, exhausted and coffee-stained and running on fumes, Ethan Cole couldn't shake the feeling that last night had been the beginning of something he didn't yet understand. Maya's volcano exploded all over the kitchen table at exactly 6:37 p.m., sending baking soda and red food coloring across homework papers in yesterday's mail. She shrieked with delight. Ethan just closed his eyes and tried to remember why he'd thought this was a good idea on 3 hours of sleep. Again! Maya bounced on her chair, her gap-toothed grin so much like Sarah's that it physically hurt to look at sometimes. Dad, can we do it again? Once was enough, kiddo. He grabbed paper towels, mopping up the mess. We need to let it dry before school tomorrow anyway. But it was so cool. It was very cool. You're going to get an A. You think so? I know so. She helped him clean up, chattering about her day, something about a girl named Sophie who brought hermit crabs for show and tell, and how her teacher misses. Palmer said they were doing multiplication next week, And did he know that hermit crabs can live for 30 years? Ethan made the appropriate noises, fighting to keep his eyes open, wondering if he'd ever feel rested again. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. "Is that work?" Maya asked, her voice going small. "Probably just spam." He didn't look. "Come on, let's get this table cleaned up and then we can—" The phone rang. Not a text this time. An actual call. Maya's face fell. She knew that look. Knew what came next. 6 years old and already fluent in disappointment. "I'm sorry," Ethan said, and he hated how familiar the words felt. "Let me just see who it is." Unknown number. He almost declined, but something made him answer. "Cole." Lena's voice was tight, professional. "I need you back here. Now." His stomach dropped. "What happened?" "The defense system I used to lock Chen out, it's still active. I can't access my own computer at all. And I have 48 hours to submit the final security platform specifications to the board, or the entire deal falls apart." Ethan looked at Maya, who was watching him with those two knowing eyes. "I can't. I just got home. I'll pay you triple your rate, plus overtime, plus a bonus if you can fix this tonight." "It's not about money." "Then what is it about?" He wanted to explain. Wanted to tell her about promises made and broken, about a 6-year-old who'd already lost one parent and spent too much time watching the other one leave. But those weren't things you said to your client, even if that client had bought you Thai food at 2 a.m. and somehow made you feel like maybe you weren't completely failing at everything. "I have responsibilities," he said finally. "So do I. To 300 employees who depend on this company, to investors who trusted me with their money, to users who believe in what we're building." Her voice softened slightly. "I wouldn't ask if I had another option, but my entire system is locked and you're the only person who got through it once. I need you to do it again." Maya tugged on his sleeve. "You have to go, don't you?" The fact that she already knew broke something in him. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I do." She nodded, trying to be brave, trying to be the good girl who understood that Daddy had important work, but her bottom lip trembled, and she wouldn't meet his eyes. "Give me an hour," Ethan told Lena. "I need to make arrangements." He called Mrs. Chen. Again. She agreed to come over. Again. And when she arrived 20 minutes later, she looked at Maya's carefully neutral expression and then at Ethan with something close to pity. "This is becoming a pattern," she said quietly, in the hallway where Maya couldn't hear. "I know. That little girl needs her father." "I know." "Then maybe you should act like it." She wasn't wrong, but knowing that didn't change the fact that if he didn't go back tonight, Lena's company collapsed and 300 people lost their jobs and a security platform that could actually protect user data never made it to market. Individual responsibility versus collective good. His daughter's happiness versus strangers' livelihoods. There was no right answer, so he chose the wrong one. Again. "Be good for Mrs. Chen," he told Maya, kneeling down to her level. "I'll be back before breakfast, promise." "You promised last time too." "I know, and I'm sorry, but this is important." "I'm important." It was the first time she'd ever said it out loud. The first time she'd pushed back instead of just accepting that work came first. And it gutted him. "You're the most important thing in my entire world," Ethan said, and his voice cracked. "Nothing else even comes close, you know that, right?" She shrugged. 6 years old and already building walls. He kissed her forehead and left before she could see him cry. The drive back to Hart Technologies took 40 minutes. Ethan spent it trying to convince himself he'd made the right choice, knowing he hadn't, unable to see any other option. This was the trap he'd built for himself. Skills too specialized, morals too rigid, life too complicated to fit into neat boxes. Lena was waiting in her office, looking significantly less composed than she had that morning. Her hair was down, falling past her shoulders in waves that suggested she'd been running her hands through it. The suit jacket was gone. She looked younger without all the armor, more human. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Let's just fix this." The computer sat on her desk like an accusation. Black screen, locked tight. The same security system Ethan had fought through 12 hours ago, except now he was starting from scratch. Exhausted, running on fumes and guilt. "Walk me through what happened," he said, pulling up a chair. "I tried to log in normally. System denied me." I tried the emergency override. System locked down completely. I tried. She hesitated. I tried a few other things. The system is now in maximum security mode. I think I have one more attempt before it initiates a complete data wipe. One attempt. Yes. So if I'm wrong, everything's gone. Yes. Ethan laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know, normal people would have backups. Normal people aren't trying to build a security platform that guarantees absolute data protection. Can't exactly promise that if I'm keeping copies everywhere. Fair point. He cracked his knuckles, staring at the screen. Okay, let's think this through. The system locked you out because it thinks you're a threat. Why? Because I used emergency protocols to stop Chen. The system interpreted that as suspicious activity. So it's protecting you from yourself. Essentially. Great. My favorite kind of problem. Ethan pulled up his laptop, connecting to the company network, mapping the architecture he'd navigated earlier. The good news is I know the system now. I spent 9 hours inside it. I know its patterns, its triggers, its vulnerabilities. And the bad news? The bad news is it knows me too. It'll have logged my access points, reinforced the weak spots, updated its defenses. I'm walking into a maze that's been redesigned specifically to keep me out. Lena sat down across from him. Can you do it? I don't know, maybe. If I'm very smart and very lucky, and if the universe decides to cut me a break. He looked at her. You might want to start working on a backup plan, just in case. The backup plan is losing everything I've built, so let's go with your plan instead. They worked in silence for a while, Ethan probing the system's defenses, looking for a way in that wouldn't trigger the final lockout. It was slow, meticulous work, the digital equivalent of defusing a bomb. One wrong move and everything detonated. Around midnight, Lena ordered food again. Chinese this time. She set it on the desk between them without comment, just opened the containers and kept working on her tablet, rebuilding presentation materials by hand. You do this a lot? Ethan asked. Work through the night? More than I should, less than I used to. What changed? She was quiet for a moment. I turned 30 and realized I'd built this massive company and had no one to share it with. Everyone I knew was either an employee or a business contact or someone who wanted something from me. I couldn't remember the last time I'd had a real conversation that didn't end in a contract negotiation. Sounds lonely. It is. She met his eyes. What about you? How do you balance it? The work, the single parenting, all of it? I don't. That's why I'm here instead of home with my daughter. He stabbed at his fried rice with more force than necessary. I tell myself I'm doing the right thing, making the world safer, protecting people, using my skills for good. But mostly I'm just choosing other people's problems over my own kids' happiness. You're being too hard on yourself. Am I? Because she's 6 years old and already knows that work matters more than she does. That's not being hard on myself, that's just being honest. Lena set down her fork. For what it's worth, I think you're wrong. I think she knows her father is someone who shows up when people need help. Someone who doesn't walk away from hard things. That's not nothing. Tell that to her when she's in therapy 15 years from now, talking about how her dad was never there. My father was there every single night for dinner, Lena said quietly. Sat at the head of the table, asked about my day, played the part of devoted parent. And he didn't know me at all, didn't care to. He saw me as an extension of himself, something to shape and control and show off at parties. When I told him I was starting this company, you know what he said? He said I was wasting my potential on a venture that would fail within a year. She smiled, but it was sad around the edges. He died 2 years ago. We hadn't spoken in 5. So maybe being present isn't just about physical proximity. I'm sorry about your father. Don't be. He made his choices. I made mine. She picked up her tablet again. The point is, your daughter sees you trying. That counts. Does it? I think so. But ask me again when I have kids and maybe I'll have a better answer. You want kids? Theoretically. Practically, I can't even keep a plant alive. She gestured at a dead fern in the corner. That was supposed to improve air quality. Now it's just a monument to my inability to nurture living things. Ethan actually laughed. Real laughter that surprised him. Okay, that's pretty bad. I'm aware. They fell into an easier rhythm after that. Ethan worked on the security problem while Lena rebuilt her presentation, and somewhere in the exhausted hours between midnight and dawn, the conversation wandered. Not business talk, not crisis management, just two people sharing space, sharing stories, sharing the kind of comfortable silence that usually took months to develop. "Can I ask you something?" Lena said around 3 a.m. "Sure." "Your wife, what was she like?" Ethan's hand stilled on the keyboard. People didn't usually ask about Sarah. They offered condolences, changed the subject, got uncomfortable. But Lena just looked at him with genuine curiosity, like she actually wanted to know. She was, he searched for words. She was the kind of person who made everyone around her better, kinder, more patient. She saw the best in people even when they didn't deserve it, especially when they didn't deserve it. He smiled at the memory. "I was this rigid by-the-book military guy when we met. Everything in its place, rules for everything. She taught me that sometimes the rules are wrong, that sometimes doing the right thing means breaking protocol. She'd probably approve of you running upstairs last night instead of filing a report." "Yeah, she would." He paused. "She got sick when Maya was 2. Stage 4 by the time they caught it. We had 8 months. That's it. 8 months to say everything, to prepare, to figure out how I was going to raise a daughter alone." His throat tightened. "It wasn't enough time." "There's never enough time." "No, but some people get decades. We got 8 months and a 2-year-old who won't remember her mother's voice." Lena didn't say she was sorry, didn't offer platitudes. She just nodded, accepting the weight of it, and somehow that was better than any condolence. "She sounds remarkable," Lena said finally. "She was. I don't know the right tense for someone who's gone but still everywhere." He looked around the office. "See, this is why I don't talk about it. Gets too philosophical. Or maybe it's just honest." At 4:15, Ethan had his breakthrough. Not a way in? Not yet. But a pattern. The system was cycling through security protocols in a predictable sequence. Predictable meant exploitable. "I've got something," he said. Lena was beside him immediately. "What?" "Your defense system runs on a rotation. Every 90 seconds it shifts between 3 different encryption methods. If I can time it exactly right, there's a 2-second window where the transition happens and the system is vulnerable." 2 seconds. "Yeah. That's impossible." "Difficult. Not impossible." He was already writing the exploit code, fingers moving faster than thought. "I'll need to execute perfectly. No hesitation, no errors, no second guessing. And I'll only get 1 shot." "What are the odds?" "Honestly, 30%. Maybe 40 if everything goes perfect. And if it doesn't work? Total data wipe. Everything gone. Your presentation, your security platform, all of it." Lena was very still. "Do it." "You sure? Because there's no undo button here. If I fail, I trust you." The words hung in the air between them. Ethan couldn't remember the last time someone had said that to him with such certainty. Not hoping he'd succeed, not believing in his potential, just flat out trusting that he'd come through. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay." He set up the exploit, triple-checking every line of code, every parameter, every command. This wasn't like defusing a bomb. It was worse. Bombs only exploded. This would erase 6 years of work, hundreds of millions in development, the foundation of everything Lena had built. No pressure. "Here we go," Ethan said. "When I hit enter, we'll have exactly 2 seconds to input the override code. I'll count down. On 0, you type the master password. Don't think, don't hesitate, just type." "Got it?" "You know the password?" "Of course I know the password." "Right, stupid question." He positioned his hands over the keyboard, watching the system cycle through its protocols, waiting for the exact moment. His heart hammered, sweat beaded on his forehead. Everything came down to this. 3 rotations. 2. 1. "Now!" He hit enter. The screen flickered. Code cascaded. Lena typed with machine precision, her fingers finding keys without looking, muscle memory taking over. The system fought back, throwing up errors, trying to lock them out. But Ethan was faster, adjusting on the fly, countering every defensive move. 1 second, 2 seconds. Access denied. "No." The word escaped before he could stop it. No, that's not. The screen went black. Total system failure. Lena made a sound like she'd been punched. Wait! Ethan stared at the blank monitor. Wait, this isn't right. What do you mean it's not right? We failed. It's over. No, look at the error code. He pointed to a tiny string of numbers in the corner. That's not a wipe command. That's a hard reboot. The system crashed, but the data's still there. It has to be. How do you know? Because I've seen this before. Military systems use the same architecture. When they detect a critical threat, they don't destroy data. They isolate it, lock it down completely, and force a full system restore. He was already pulling up recovery tools. If I'm right, everything's intact. We just need to bring it back online. And if you're wrong, then it doesn't matter because the data's already gone. He worked frantically, bypassing the crashed system, accessing the core drives directly, praying he was right. The minutes crawled. Lena stood behind him, silent, barely breathing. 5 minutes became 10, 10 became 15, then the screen flickered. Text appeared. System diagnostics. Boot sequence. Recovery mode. Come on, Ethan muttered. Come on, come on. The desktop loaded. Every file, every folder, every piece of data they needed. It worked, Lena whispered. It actually worked. Ethan slumped in his chair, adrenaline draining out of him so fast he felt dizzy. We got lucky. That wasn't luck. That was brilliant. Luck and brilliant aren't mutually exclusive. He pulled up her presentation files, checking to make sure nothing was corrupted. Everything looks intact. You should be able to access normally now. I've disabled the aggressive defense protocols so this won't happen again. Which means we're vulnerable. No, it means you're protected by excellent security instead of paranoid security. There's a difference. She laughed, and it sounded slightly hysterical. I don't know whether to thank you or have a breakdown. Why not both? Practical. She sat down heavily. What time is it? Almost 5. I have to be back here in 4 hours for a full day of meetings. Then you should go home, sleep, shower, pretend to be a functional human being. What about you? Ethan thought about Maya, probably still asleep, her volcano sitting on the kitchen table waiting to be transported to school. Thought about Mrs. Chen's judging eyes and his daughter's carefully neutral expression and the promise he'd broken. Again. I should go too, he said. But neither of them moved. The sky outside was lightening, that same pre-dawn gray from yesterday. How was it possible that only 24 hours had passed? It felt like a lifetime, like he'd lived a week in a single night. Thank you, Lena said quietly. I know I keep saying that, but I don't know what else to say. You don't have to say anything. And still, you saved me twice. That's not nothing. Just doing what anyone would... Don't. She cut him off. Don't diminish it. What you did was extraordinary. Own that. Ethan met her eyes, saw the exhaustion there, the relief, the gratitude. Saw something else too, something he wasn't ready to name. Okay, he said. You're welcome. Dinner, she said suddenly. I mentioned it before, but I'm saying it again. Dinner. A real thank you. When are you free? I'm a single parent with an unpredictable schedule. Free is a relative term. Then make time, please. There were a dozen reasons to say no. Professional boundaries, complicated lives. The fact that she was a billionaire CEO and he was a contractor who wore coffee-stained shirts and barely kept his life together. The fact that he had a daughter who needed stability, not more complications. But he looked at Lena Hart, brilliant, driven, lonely Lena Hart, who ordered Thai food at 2 a.m. and trusted him with her entire company, and said, Saturday night, 7 o'clock, you pick the place. Saturday, she agreed. 7 o'clock. Ethan packed up his laptop, gathering the pieces of his scattered life. His phone showed 12 missed calls from Mrs. Chen and a text from Maya sent at bedtime. Good night, Daddy. I love you even when you leave. The guilt was crushing. Go, Lena said softly. Be with your daughter. I'll be fine. He left her there in the office, surrounded by the empire she'd built, looking small and human and alone. The drive home was a blur. Ethan stopped for coffee he didn't need, drove past his exit twice, finally made it to his driveway as the sun crested the horizon. Mrs. Chen opened the door before he could use his key. "She cried for an hour after you left," the old woman said without preamble. "Then she built another volcano in her room using shampoo and refused to come out." "Is she—" "She's fine. Asleep. But Mr. Cole, this cannot continue." "I know. Do you? Because it seems like you keep making the same choice over and over, and that little girl is the one paying for it." She left without waiting for a response. Ethan stood in his own hallway, coffee going cold in his hand, wondering when everything had gotten so complicated, wondering if saving the world one crisis at a time meant failing at the things that actually mattered. He checked on Maya. She was curled up in her bed, clutching the stuffed elephant Sarah had given her the day she was born. Her face was tear-stained. The shampoo volcano sat on her dresser, a monument to 6-year-old rage. "I'm sorry," he whispered, knowing she couldn't hear him. "I'm so sorry." He made it to his own bed and collapsed, still in yesterday's clothes, still smelling like Lena's office and crisis and exhaustion. His phone buzzed one last time. A text from Lena. "Get some rest. And Cole, you're a good father. Don't let guilt tell you otherwise." He wanted to believe her, wanted to think that trying counted for something, that his intentions mattered, that Maya would understand someday. But when he closed his eyes, all he saw was his daughter's face when he'd walked out the door. All he heard was her small voice saying, "I'm important." Sleep came eventually, heavy and dreamless, and when he woke 4 hours later to Maya jumping on his bed, demanding breakfast and help carrying her volcano to school, he pushed down the guilt and focused on being present. For now, that had to be enough, even if he knew it wasn't. The volcano got a B+, which Maya insisted was basically an A, and for 3 days, Ethan managed to pretend everything was normal. He picked her up from school on time. They made spaghetti together and watched movies and built a blanket fort in the living room that stayed up for 2 nights because neither of them wanted to take it down. He didn't think about Lena Hart or boardrooms or security breaches. He didn't check his phone every 15 minutes. He almost succeeded in believing the lie. Saturday arrived with gray skies and the threat of rain. Maya spent the morning at a birthday party. Some kid named Connor, whose mother Ethan vaguely recognized from school pickup, which gave him 3 hours to himself. 3 hours to shower properly, to put on clothes that didn't smell like coffee and desperation, to stare at his closet and realize he had nothing appropriate for dinner with a billionaire. He settled on dark jeans and a button-down shirt that wasn't wrinkled. It would have to do. Mrs. Chen agreed to watch Maya for the evening, though her disapproval radiated through the phone line like heat from asphalt. "Another late night? Just dinner. I'll be back by 10. The sound contained volumes of judgment. "This dinner. Is it work?" "Sort of. It's complicated." "It always is with you, Mr. Cole." She wasn't wrong. Lena had chosen a restaurant Ethan had only read about in magazines, the kind of place where reservations took months and the menu didn't list prices. He showed up 10 minutes early and immediately felt out of place. Everyone else looked like they belonged here, like they wore $1,000 watches and discussed stock portfolios over appetizers. The host took one look at Ethan, and his expression suggested he'd found something unpleasant on his shoe. "Reservation name?" "Hart. I'm meeting—" "Ah, yes. Ms. Hart arrived a few minutes ago. Right this way." The table was tucked in a corner with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Lena was already there, studying the wine list with the same intensity she'd applied to rebuilding her presentation. She looked different outside the office. Softer somehow, less armored. Dark green dress, hair down, minimal makeup. Still beautiful in that intimidating way that made Ethan acutely aware of his discount button-down. She looked up and smiled. A real smile, not the professional mask from the boardroom. "You came," she said. "You sound surprised." "Little bit. Thought you might bail." "Considered it." Ethan sat down, trying not to think about how much this chair probably cost. "But you did save my career by not reporting me for unauthorized access, so I figured I owed you a dinner. I thought I owed you dinner for saving my company. Twice. Let's call it even." The waiter appeared with water and bread that was probably artisanal or organic or some other word that meant expensive. Lena ordered wine without looking at the list. Ethan just nodded when she raised an eyebrow at him. "So," she said when they were alone again, "how's Maya? Did the volcano survive transport?" "Barely. We had to strap it into the passenger seat like it was a person. She made me drive under the speed limit the whole way." He smiled at the memory. "Got a B+, though. She's already planning next year's project, something involving electricity and potatoes. Ambitious. That's one word for it. Terrifying is another." Lena laughed, and the sound was warmer than he remembered, less controlled. "I like her already." "You haven't met her." "No, but I like what she does to you. You light up when you talk about her." Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "Yeah, well, she's pretty much my whole world." "I can tell." The wine arrived, red, complex, probably cost more than Ethan's grocery budget for a month. He took a sip and tried not to wince. He'd never developed a taste for the expensive stuff. "Tell me something," Lena said, leaning forward slightly. "The other night, when you broke into my office, it was unlocked." "Walked into my office," she amended with a slight smile. "You said you had this theory about people deciding things aren't their problem. Where'd that come from?" Ethan was quiet for a moment, rolling the wine glass between his hands. "Afghanistan. 2015. We had intelligence about an attack on a civilian market. Nothing concrete, just chatter, patterns, suspicious activity. My commanding officer wanted to wait for confirmation before deploying. Standard protocol. Smart, even." He stared at the wine. "I went anyway. Took 2 guys from my unit who were dumb enough to trust me. We got there 20 minutes before the bomb went off. Evacuated maybe 300 people. You saved 300 lives." "Yeah, and got court-martialed for disobeying orders." He looked up at her. "Dishonorable discharge, technically, though they buried it in paperwork. Said I was mentally unfit for duty, PTSD, stress, whatever excuse made them look less bad for punishing someone who prevented a massacre." Lena's expression was unreadable. "Do you regret it?" "Which part? Saving people or ending my career?" "Either. Both. I regret that I had to choose. That the system was built in a way that following orders meant letting people die." He set down the glass. "But no. I'd do it again, every time." "Even though it cost you everything?" "It didn't cost me everything. I still had Sarah then. Still had my skills, still had myself." He paused. "What it cost me was the belief that institutions care more about people than they do about rules. That was probably worth losing." The waiter returned to take their order. Ethan chose something at random from the menu, not really caring what arrived as long as it was food. Lena ordered with the practiced ease of someone who did this regularly. When they were alone again, she said, "You know, that's why I started this company. My father ran one of the largest tech firms in the country. Every decision was about profit margins and stock prices and keeping investors happy. User privacy, security, those were afterthoughts. Problems to solve with lawyers and PR teams, not actual solutions." She traced the rim of her wine glass. "When the Cambridge Analytica scandal broke, I watched him go on television and lie. Just straight up lie about how his company protected user data. And I realized he didn't even see it as lying. To him, it was just business." "So you decided to do better." "I decided to prove you could build something valuable without compromising on principles. That security and privacy didn't have to be sacrificed for profit." She smiled, but it was tired. "Naive, probably. Idealistic, different thing. Is it, though?" Their food arrived before Ethan could answer. His turned out to be some kind of fish with a sauce he couldn't identify, and vegetables arranged like art. He ate mechanically, more interested in the conversation than the meal. "Can I ask you something?" Lena said after a while. "And you can tell me to shut up if it's too personal." "Go ahead." "How do you do it?" "The single parent thing. The guilt, the constant juggling, the feeling like you're failing at everything simultaneously." Ethan set down his fork. "What makes you think I do? You're here, aren't you? Having dinner instead of home with Maya. So either you figured out how to balance it, or you're still trying and hating yourself a little bit for it." Option B. He pushed food around his plate. "Honestly, most days I have no idea what I'm doing. I just try to show up and hope that's enough. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it really isn't." "Does it get easier?" Why are you asking? Planning on single parenthood? Lena laughed, but it sounded hollow. No, but I've been thinking about what kind of life I'm building. I'm 30 years old. I run a company worth billions. I have a penthouse apartment with a view most people would kill for. And I come home every night to silence. She met his eyes. Is that success? Because it doesn't feel like it. What would success feel like? I don't know, something more than this. Someone to share it with, maybe. Someone who sees me as Lena, not as Heart Technologies or a net worth or a business opportunity. Ethan understood that more than he wanted to admit. That's the trap, though, isn't it? You build your life around work because it's what you know, what you're good at. And then one day you look up and realize you're alone and you don't know how to be anything else. Speaking from experience, I have a 6-year-old daughter and my best friend is a 70-year-old neighbor who judges my life choices. So, yeah, speaking from experience. They talked through dinner, the conversation flowing easier than it should have between two people who barely knew each other. Lena told him about growing up in her father's shadow, always trying to prove she was more than just a legacy admission to Stanford, more than just a trust fund kid playing at entrepreneurship. Ethan talked about the military, about losing Sarah, about the strange loneliness of being a single parent in a world built for couples. Somewhere around dessert, something chocolate and pretentious that Ethan couldn't pronounce, Lena's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression changed. Problem? Ethan asked. I don't know. My head of security just sent me a flagged email, marked urgent. She opened it, her eyes scanning quickly. The color drained from her face. Oh no. What? The data Chen stole. It wasn't just company files. Her voice was tight, controlled, the same tone she'd used in the boardroom. He had access to our entire user database, personal information for every single person who uses our platform, names, addresses, encrypted passwords, financial data, everything. Ethan felt ice in his stomach. How many users? 47 million. The number hung in the air between them like a physical thing. Please tell me he didn't sell it, Ethan said. Lena's hands were shaking slightly as she scrolled through the email. I don't know. Security found evidence of external communications, encrypted channels, untraceable endpoints. They're still investigating, but... She looked up at him. If that data gets out, people lose everything. Bank accounts drained, identities stolen, lives ruined. 47 million people. You need to notify them. Now, tonight. Give them a chance to change passwords, lock accounts, protect themselves. I know. But if I announce this publicly, the company collapses, stock crashes, investors pull funding, everything I built disappears. Her voice cracked slightly. 300 employees lose their jobs. The security platform never launches, and I spend the rest of my life in lawsuits. That's not, I know what you're going to say, that I have to do the right thing regardless of cost, that those people deserve to know. You're right. You're absolutely right. She closed her eyes. But I need a minute to process that I'm about to destroy everything. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. The gesture was instinctive, human, completely inappropriate for a professional relationship. He didn't care. You're not destroying anything, he said quietly. You're protecting people. That's what you built this company to do, remember? Security and privacy above profit. This is you living up to that. Easy for you to say. It's not your life's work going up in flames. No. But I've been where you are. Had to choose between protecting people and protecting myself. It sucks. It's unfair. And you're going to hate yourself either way. He squeezed her hand. But at least this way you get to look yourself in the mirror. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone and started typing. I'm calling an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Full disclosure, complete transparency. We'll notify every user, offer credit monitoring, take responsibility for the breach. Her voice was steady now, resolved. And we'll hunt down whoever Chen sold that data to and make sure they burn for it. That's the Lena Hart I met at midnight. The one who's about to commit corporate suicide? The one who does the right thing even when it costs her everything. They left the restaurant shortly after, the evening ending not with romance but with crisis management. Lena spent the car ride back making calls, assembling her legal team, preparing for war. Ethan sat beside her in the back of the town car she'd called, watching her transform back into the CEO who'd faced down her board and won. When they reached his neighborhood, decidedly less upscale than the restaurant, she ended her call and looked at him. "Thank you," she said, "for being honest, for not telling me what I wanted to hear. Anytime. I mean it. Most people in my life just agree with whatever I say. It's refreshing to talk to someone who'll tell me when I'm being an idiot." "You weren't being an idiot, you were being human. There's a difference." She smiled, tired but genuine. Rain check on the actual nice dinner? Once you're not dealing with the corporate crisis of the century. Deal. Ethan got out of the car and watched it disappear into the night. The rain had started, light but persistent, soaking through his button-down. He didn't move, just stood there in his driveway, thinking about 47 million people who were about to find out their private information had been compromised, about a company that might not survive the fallout, about a woman who'd chosen to do the right thing knowing it would destroy her. His phone buzzed. A text from Lena. For what it's worth, tonight wasn't a complete disaster. Same time next crisis? He typed back, "I'll bring the coffee." Inside, Mrs. Chen was asleep on the couch and Maya was sprawled across her bed, still in her party dress, face sticky with cake frosting. Ethan cleaned her up gently, trying not to wake her, failing. "Daddy?" She blinked at him sleepily. "Did you have a good dinner?" "Yeah, kiddo, I did." "Was it with work people?" "Sort of." "Are you going to leave again?" The question hit harder than it should have. "Not tonight. Tonight I'm here." "Promise?" "Promise." She fell back asleep almost immediately, content with the answer even if it was only temporary. Ethan sat on the edge of her bed for a long time, watching her breathe, thinking about all the ways he kept failing her and all the ways he kept trying anyway. Tomorrow Lena would face her board and probably lose everything. Tomorrow 47 million people would wake up to notification emails that their data had been compromised. Tomorrow the news would break and Hart Technologies would be headline news for all the wrong reasons. But tonight, in this moment, Maya was safe and sleeping and home. And that had to count for something. It had to. The board meeting started at 8 a.m. sharp. Ethan wasn't invited, wasn't part of the company, wasn't relevant to corporate decisions, but Lena had sent him access to the video feed anyway. He watched from his car in the Hart Technologies parking garage, coffee going cold in the cup holder, Maya safely at Sunday school with Mrs. Chen covering transport. The boardroom looked the same as before. Same glass walls, same expensive furniture, same executives in suits worth more than most people's monthly salary. But the energy was different, tense, hostile. They knew something was wrong. Lena stood at the head of the table. No notes, no presentation materials. Just her and the truth. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," she began. "I'm going to be direct because we don't have time for anything else. 3 nights ago, our VP of Operations, David Chen, initiated an unauthorized data breach. He accessed our user database and extracted personal information for all 47 million active users." The room erupted. Questions, accusations, demands for details. Lena waited for the noise to die down. "We have evidence Chen was working with external parties, though we're still investigating who and to what end. What we know for certain is that user data, names, addresses, encrypted financial information, is now in the hands of bad actors. We have no way to guarantee it hasn't been sold or distributed." "Do the users know?" asked Victoria Marsh, the CFO. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, the kind of person who saw through corporate doublespeak. "Not yet. That's why I called this meeting. We need to notify them immediately. Full disclosure. Offer credit monitoring, identity theft protection, everything we can to mitigate damage." "Absolutely not." This from Robert Sterling, the oldest member of the board. Old money, old ideas, old approach to crisis management. "You notify 47 million people that their data was stolen and this company is finished. Stock crashes, lawsuits, regulatory investigations. We'll be dead in a month." "So what's your alternatives?" Lena's voice was ice. "Hope nobody notices? Bury it and pray?" "We investigate quietly. Fix the vulnerability. Improve security. There's no evidence the data has actually been used for anything. Why create panic over a hypothetical threat?" "Because it's not hypothetical, it's real, and those people deserve to know." "What they deserve," Sterling said coldly, is leadership that doesn't tank their investment on moral grandstanding. Ethan watched Lena's face through the video feed, saw the moment she made her choice. Then you need different leadership, she said quietly, because I'm notifying the users today. And if the board wants to remove me for it, that's your decision to make. But I'm not hiding this. The room went silent. Victoria Marsh spoke first. You understand what you're saying? You're willing to sacrifice the company for this? I'm willing to do what's right. If that sacrifices the company, then maybe the company isn't worth saving. Idealistic nonsense, Sterling muttered. This is exactly why we had reservations about your leadership. Too young, too naive, too emotionally. Choose your next words very carefully. Lena's voice cut like a blade. Because I have recordings of you suggesting we cover up a massive security breach that affects millions of people. That's not just unethical, it's criminal. So unless you want those recordings in front of a federal prosecutor, I suggest you sit down and let me handle this. Sterling's face went purple, but he sat down. Anyone else have concerns? Lena looked around the table. No? Good. We're sending notifications within the hour, full press release by noon, and we're cooperating completely with any investigation. This company was built on protecting user privacy. We don't get to abandon that the moment it becomes inconvenient. She left without waiting for a response. Ethan's phone rang 30 seconds later. Tell me you watched that, Lena said without preamble. Every second. I just committed career suicide, didn't I? Maybe. Or maybe you just became the first tech CEO with actual integrity. Could go either way. She laughed, but it sounded shaky. I need you to come in, now. I need someone who knows how to track digital footprints, who can help legal build a case against whoever Chen sold that data to. I'm paying your rate plus 20%. I have Maya this afternoon. Bring her. We have a whole floor that's basically empty. Snacks in the break room, Wi-Fi. Bring a tablet and some headphones and let her watch movies while we work. Please, Cole. I need someone I can trust. Ethan thought about Mrs. Chen's disapproval, about Maya's question the night before, about all the reasons this was a bad idea. Give me 30 minutes, he said. Maya was less than thrilled about spending Sunday afternoon in an office building, but the promise of unlimited snacks and a tablet loaded with her favorite shows softened the blow. She set up camp in a conference room on the executive floor, surrounded by pillows Lena's assistant had somehow procured, looking like a tiny queen holding court. You're sure this is okay? Ethan asked Lena for the third time. It's fine, better than fine. I like that she's here. Lena waved at Maya through the glass wall. Maya waved back enthusiastically. Besides, if I'm going down in flames, might as well do it with company. They worked through the afternoon, Ethan tracing digital breadcrumbs while Lena coordinated with legal, PR, and her security team. The user notifications went out at 1 p.m. The press release followed at 2. By 3, every major news outlet was running the story. Tech giant Hart Technologies announces massive data breach. 47 million users affected in security failure. CEO Lena Hart takes responsibility. Promises full transparency. The stock price started falling almost immediately, down 15% by market close. Investors were calling for Lena's resignation. Social media was a hurricane of opinions, some praising her honesty, others demanding her head. Ethan found the first real lead at 6 p.m. Got something, he said, pulling up a series of encrypted communications between Chen and an external party. These messages are routing through multiple proxies, but I can trace the pattern. Whoever Chen was talking to, they're sophisticated. Military-grade encryption, constantly shifting endpoints, covering their tracks. But you can track them. Maybe, if I... He stopped, stared at the screen. No, that's not possible. What? These encryption protocols, I've seen them before. His hands were already moving, pulling up old files from his military days, comparing algorithms. This is modified NSA code, backdoor access built into commercial security systems. We used it in Afghanistan to monitor terrorist communications. Lena leaned over his shoulder. You're saying Chen was working with the government? No, I'm saying he was working with someone who has access to government-level hacking tools, someone with serious resources and serious connections. He traced the data flow. And they're not just stealing user data. They're using your platform as a backdoor into other systems, financial institutions, healthcare databases, infrastructure networks. Your company isn't the target, it's the weapon. That's impossible. Our security is excellent, I know. But they didn't hack you. Chen gave them the keys, and now they're using those keys to break into everything your platform connects to. Lena's face went white. How many systems? I don't know. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. He pulled up a network map, showing the spiderweb of connections spreading out from Hart Technologies. Every company that uses your security platform, every institution that trusts your encryption, they all have a backdoor now, and whoever Chen was working with can access them whenever they want. We have to shut it down, immediately. If we shut down your platform, we alert them that we're onto them. They'll cover their tracks, erase evidence, disappear. We'll never find them. And if we don't shut it down, people get hurt, bank accounts emptied, medical records stolen, infrastructure compromised, real damage to real people. It was the same choice all over again. Protect the investigation or protect the people. There was no good answer. Lena looked through the glass wall at Maya, who was curled up asleep on the pillows, tablet still playing cartoons nobody was watching. We protect the people, Lena said quietly. Every time. That's the only choice. Your company. I don't care about the company. I care about doing what's right. So they shut it down, disabled the platform, locked out all external access, sent emergency notifications to every connected institution. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. More headlines, more criticism, stock price in freefall, calls for congressional hearings. By 8 p.m., Lena Hart had lost roughly 70% of her company's value and become the most controversial CEO in tech. Well, she said, staring at the news coverage on her phone, that's definitely career suicide. You did the right thing. Doesn't feel like it. Ethan's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Cole. The voice was male, distorted, filtered through some kind of vocal modulator. You've been very busy today. Who is this? Someone who's disappointed you shut down such a useful access point. We had plans for that platform. Ethan's blood went cold. What do you want? To give you a choice. Stop investigating, delete the evidence, walk away, and nobody gets hurt. Keep digging, and we make sure everyone knows Lena Hart's company was built on lies, fabricated security, falsified audits, criminal negligence. We can destroy her reputation so thoroughly she'll never work again. You're bluffing. Am I? We have Chen's testimony, signed affidavits, digital evidence placing Ms. Hart at the center of the entire operation. All very convincing, all completely fabricated, of course. But the truth doesn't matter. The accusation is enough. Why are you doing this? Because we can. Because your little morality play is interfering with business. Because people like you and Ms. Hart think you can fight the system and win. The voice paused. You can't. Walk away while you still can. The line went dead. Ethan looked at Lena, who'd heard enough of the conversation to understand. They're going to destroy you, he said. Frame you for all of this. Make you the villain. Let them try. Lena, they have resources, connections. They can make evidence appear, make witnesses lie, make the world believe anything they want. I don't care. You should care. This isn't just about the company anymore. This is about your freedom, your future, everything. She met his eyes. Then I guess we'd better find them first. Maya woke up around 9, cranky and disoriented, asking why they were still at the office. Ethan didn't have a good answer. Lena ordered pizza. Somehow even that was expensive and artisanal. And the three of them ate in the conference room while the world outside continued to burn. Are you my dad's new friend? Maya asked Lena through a mouthful of cheese. I guess so, yeah. Do you like him? Maya, Ethan said. That's not... It's okay. Lena smiled. Yes, I like him. He's very brave and very smart and very annoying when he thinks he's right. He's always right. It's super annoying. I can imagine. They cleaned up eventually, packed up Maya's things, prepared to leave. The office was empty now, everyone else gone home hours ago. Just the three of them and the security guards, and the weight of everything that had happened. "What now?" Ethan asked as they waited for the elevator. "Now I go home and prepare for the congressional hearing they're definitely going to call. You go home and be a father. And tomorrow we both wake up and figure out how to fight people who have more power than we do and no conscience to slow them down." "Sounds like a terrible plan. You have a better one?" "Not even slightly." The elevator arrived. They rode down in silence, Maya asleep on Ethan's shoulder, Lena staring at her reflection in the polished doors. "Thank you for today," she said as they reached the parking garage. "For staying, for helping, for bringing Maya and making this nightmare feel slightly less nightmarish. She liked you. That's rare. She doesn't trust easily. Smart kid. Takes after her dad." They stood there for a moment, neither quite ready to leave, both knowing they had to. "Cole?" Lena's voice was soft. "Whatever happens next, I'm glad you burst into my office that night." "Yeah, me too." He drove home through empty streets, Maya sleeping in the back seat, the city lights blurring past. Somewhere out there, people with resources and connections and no morals were planning their next move. Somewhere out there, 47 million people were changing passwords and checking bank accounts and wondering if their information was safe. And in a penthouse apartment downtown, Lena Hart was probably staring at her laptop, watching her company collapse, wondering if doing the right thing was worth the cost. Ethan carried Maya inside, tucked her into bed, still wearing her party dress because waking her seemed cruel. His phone buzzed one last time. A text from Lena. "They're wrong, you know. We can win. We just have to be smarter than they are." He wanted to believe her, wanted to think that two people with nothing but skills and stubbornness could take on an enemy with infinite resources. But as he collapsed into his own bed, exhausted and afraid, and somehow still hopeful, Ethan Cole couldn't shake the feeling that the real fight was just beginning. And this time, the cost of losing was higher than either of them could afford. The knock came at 6:45 in the morning, hard and insistent. Ethan jerked awake, disoriented, heart already racing with the kind of adrenaline that came from too many years expecting bad news. Maya was still asleep down the hall. Dawn light filtered through curtains he'd forgotten to close. He opened the door to find two FBI agents on his porch. "Ethan Cole?" The taller one held up credentials. Agent Morrison, apparently. His partner was a woman in her 30s with tired eyes. "We need to talk about Hart Technologies. It's 6:45 in the morning. We're aware of the time. May we come in?" Ethan glanced back toward Maya's room, then stepped outside, pulling the door mostly closed behind him. "My daughter's asleep. Whatever this is, we do it out here." Morrison didn't look pleased, but nodded. "We're investigating the data breach at Hart Technologies. We have information suggesting you were involved in covering up the initial incident. That's not..." "I stopped the breach. I reported it. After accessing Ms. Hart's private system without authorization, after spending 9 hours alone with her, after being paid a substantial sum to keep quiet about security vulnerabilities you discovered." The female agent, Patterson, pulled out a tablet. "We have bank records showing 3 wire transfers to your account in the past week, total of $75,000. Ethan's stomach dropped. That was payment for contract work. Legitimate work. Interesting timing, though. Right after the breach, right before Ms. Hart announced it publicly. Morrison stepped closer. "Here's what we think happened. You and Ms. Hart discovered the breach together, saw an opportunity, staged the whole Chen incident to cover up the fact that her security platform has been compromised from the start, that her entire company is built on technology that doesn't actually work." "That's insane. Chen was stealing data. We have logs, evidence you compiled," Patterson interrupted. "Evidence that conveniently points away from Ms. Hart and toward a disgraced employee who's now claiming he was set up, claiming Ms. Hart knew about the security flaws for months and paid him to keep quiet." "He's lying." "Maybe. Or maybe you're both lying and we're about to prove it." Morrison handed him a business card. "You're going to want a lawyer, Mr. Cole." "Good one. Because when this breaks, you're looking at federal charges for computer fraud, conspiracy, and about 6 other things our prosecutors are still deciding on." They left him standing on his porch, card in hand, world tilting sideways. Ethan went inside on autopilot, made coffee he couldn't taste, stared at his phone trying to decide who to call first. His hands were shaking. The FBI, federal charges. Everything he'd built since leaving the military, his reputation, his clearances, his ability to work, was about to disappear. And Maya? What happened to Maya if he went to prison? His phone buzzed. Lena. They came to you too? Her voice was rough, like she'd been crying or screaming or both. Yeah. You? An hour ago. Said they have evidence I've been running a fraudulent operation, that the security platform is fake, that I paid Chen to take the fall. She laughed, but it was brittle. They're going to arrest me, Cole. They have warrants. They're just building the case first, making sure it's airtight. Did you lawyer up? Already on the phone with my legal team. They're saying I should prepare for the worst. Federal prison, asset seizure, the whole thing. A pause. They got to you too, didn't they? The people behind this. They're framing both of us. Looks like it. I'm sorry this is my fault. If I hadn't asked you to help, don't. Ethan cut her off. I made my choice. I knew the risks. Did you? Because I don't think either of us saw this coming. Maya appeared in the kitchen doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Daddy? Who's here? I heard voices. Ethan covered the phone. Nobody, sweetie. Just some people who had the wrong house. Go get dressed for school, okay? She looked at him with those two knowing eyes, sensing something wrong, but went back to her room. I have to go, Ethan told Lena. Need to get Maya to school. Figure out what to do about all this. We fight back. That's what we do. With what? They have the FBI, fabricated evidence, Chen's testimony. We have what? Good intentions? We have the truth. The truth doesn't matter if nobody believes it. Then we make them believe it. Her voice hardened. I'm not going down without a fight, and I'm not letting you go down alone. We're in this together. Lena, together, Cole. That's not negotiable. She hung up before he could argue. Ethan got Maya to school, forcing normalcy into every interaction, smiling at teachers, making small talk with other parents, pretending his world wasn't imploding. Mrs. Chen had agreed to pick her up that afternoon, though her expression when he'd called suggested she knew something was wrong. By 10 a.m., Ethan was back at Hart Technologies, having driven there on instinct, not sure what else to do. The building felt different now, hostile. Security guards watched him with suspicious eyes. Employees whispered as he passed. Lena's office was a war room, papers everywhere, laptops open on every surface. Her legal team, 4 lawyers in expensive suits, occupied the conference table. Lena herself looked like she hadn't slept, still wearing yesterday's clothes, hair falling out of a hasty ponytail. Tell me you found something, she said when she saw him. I found a problem. The encryption protocols Chen was using? I traced them further. They don't just connect to government systems. They connect to private military contractors, offshore data centers, shell corporations in countries with no extradition treaties. He pulled up his laptop, showing her the network map. This isn't just data theft. It's infrastructure. Someone's building a parallel internet, a shadow network that piggybacks on legitimate platforms and gives them access to everything. One of the lawyers, an older man with silver hair, leaned forward. That's speculation. You can't prove intent. I can prove the connections exist. I can prove Chen was communicating with these networks. I can prove that shutting down Hart's platform disrupted their operations. Ethan met Lena's eyes. And I can prove that whoever threatened us is powerful enough to manipulate the FBI. The FBI isn't corrupt, Silverhair said firmly. They're following evidence that was planted. Come on, you really think Lena's been running a fraudulent company for 6 years without anyone noticing? That she somehow fooled investors, auditors, security experts, government regulators, all while building fake technology? Ethan shook his head. Someone fed the FBI a story and backed it up with manufactured proof. That takes resources, serious resources. So what are you suggesting? Another lawyer asked. She was younger, sharper. That we're up against some kind of shadow organization? I'm suggesting we're up against people who have access to government-level tools and the connections to use them. Whether that's organized crime, foreign intelligence, or something else, I don't know. But they're real, and they're scared of what we found. Lena stood abruptly. Then we find them before they destroy us. Cole, keep tracing those connections. Map the entire network. I want to know who we're really fighting. That could take weeks. We don't have weeks. Then work faster. The lawyers launched into objections. It was too dangerous, too speculative. They needed to focus on the federal case, but Lena shut them down with a look. The federal case is built on lies, she said quietly. We can't defend against lies by playing defense. We go on offense. Find the people behind this and expose them. That's the only way out. They worked through the day, Ethan digging through digital breadcrumbs while Lena coordinated with her team. Somewhere around 2 p.m., he found the first real break. A shell company in Cyprus, registered to a trust in the Cayman Islands, connected to a venture capital firm in Singapore, which had investments in 17 different tech companies, all of which used Hart's security platform. Got something, Ethan said, pulling up the corporate structure. These companies aren't random. They're all in critical infrastructure, power grids, financial systems, healthcare networks, government contractors. Lena studied the screen. Someone's positioning themselves to control essential services. Not just control, access. With the right back doors, they could manipulate stock markets, shut down hospitals, crash power grids. They could hold entire countries hostage. And we shut down their access point, which is why they're framing us. We're not just inconvenient, we're a threat to a billion-dollar operation. His phone rang. Mrs. Chen. Mr. Cole, there's a problem. Maya's school called. She's running a fever. They need you to pick her up immediately. Guilt crashed over him like a wave. I'm on my way. Ethan, Lena started. My daughter's sick. I have to go. I know. I'll keep working on this. Just be careful. If they're watching us, they know about Maya. The thought made his blood run cold. Maya was in the nurse's office, curled up on a cot, face flushed. She looked so small, so vulnerable. The nurse said it was probably just a virus, nothing serious, but kids shouldn't be at school with fevers. Ethan signed her out, carried her to the car, drove home with one eye on the rearview mirror, paranoid about being followed. She fell asleep on the drive, head lolling against the window, and he kept glancing over, making sure she was still breathing. At home, he set her up on the couch with blankets and cartoons and lukewarm soup she didn't want. Her fever spiked to 102. He gave her medicine, changed the cool cloth on her forehead, sat beside her feeling helpless in the way that only sick children can make you feel. Daddy? Her voice was small. Are you in trouble? Why would you ask that? You look scared. You're never scared. He smoothed her hair back. I'm not scared, kiddo, just worried about you. Liar? But she smiled when she said it. It's okay to be scared sometimes. When did you get so wise? I'm 6. I know everything. He almost laughed. Of course you do. She fell asleep again, and Ethan sat there watching her, thinking about how much she'd already lost, how much more she might lose if this went wrong. The FBI could take him. Prison. And then what? Foster care? His parents were dead. Sarah's parents were too old. Mrs. Chen was a neighbor, not family. Maya would end up in the system. Alone. The thought was unbearable. His laptop was still in his bag. He pulled it out, working quietly from the couch while Maya slept, digging deeper into the network of shell companies and offshore accounts, following money trails through a dozen countries, tracing ownership through layers of obfuscation. And then he found it. A name buried in a filing from 3 years ago. An investor in the Singapore venture capital firm. Someone who'd carefully hidden their involvement, using proxies and intermediaries, but the connection was there if you knew where to look. Robert Sterling, the board member who'd argued against notifying users, who'd called Lena naive and idealistic, who'd sat in that boardroom and tried to cover up the breach. Ethan's hands were shaking as he pulled up more files, confirming what he was seeing. Sterling had investments in all 17 companies, had been positioning himself for years, building this network, using his board position to ensure Hart's platform was integrated into critical systems. And when Lena had discovered the breach, when she'd chosen transparency over profit, she'd threatened everything he'd built. So he'd framed her. Used his connections to plant evidence, convinced the FBI she was the criminal, turned her moral courage into a liability. Ethan called Lena immediately. It's Sterling, he said without preamble. He's behind everything, the network, the frame job, all of it. Silence. Then, are you sure? Positive. I have documentation, Financial records, corporate filings, it's all there. That son of a... She cut herself off. Okay. Can you send me everything? I need to show my lawyers. Already sending it. He paused. Lena, he's on your board. He has access to everything. Company secrets, legal strategies, financial data. He's been feeding information to the FBI this whole time. Then we remove him. Tonight, emergency board vote. I still have enough support to... He won't go quietly. The second he knows we're onto him, he'll disappear. Take the evidence with him. So what do we do? Maya stirred on the couch, mumbling something about hermit crabs. Ethan lowered his voice. We need proof he can't deny. Testimony from Chen, documentation of the threats, evidence of the FBI manipulation. All of it together, presented at once, so airtight he can't wriggle out.
That could take days. I know. And in the meantime, he's free to make his next move. Yeah. Lena was quiet for a long moment. I'm going to do something stupid, just warning you in advance. What kind of stupid? The kind where I confront him directly, tonight, at his house, record the whole conversation, see if I can get him to admit anything. That's not stupid, that's suicidal. Probably, but I'm tired of playing defense, and I'm tired of watching innocent people get hurt while rich men play games with their lives. Lena, don't! This isn't your choice, Cole, it's mine, and I'm making it. Then I'm coming with you. You have a sick daughter, who's asleep and will be asleep for hours. Mrs. Chen can sit with her. I'm not letting you do this alone. It's too dangerous, which is exactly why I'm coming. He looked at Maya, peaceful in sleep, oblivious to the adult problems swirling around her. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't get yourself killed. Fine, but if this goes sideways, you run, you get out, and you protect Maya. Promise me. Lena, promise me, Ethan. It was the first time she'd used his first name. The intimacy of it caught him off guard. I promise, he said, knowing it was a lie. Knowing he wouldn't run. Couldn't. Not from her. Not from this. Mrs. Chen arrived 20 minutes later, took one look at Ethan's face, and sighed. More work emergencies? Something like that. Maya's fever broke, but she should sleep through the night. If anything changes, I'll call immediately. Go. Do what you need to do. She paused. And Mr. Cole, be careful. Whatever this is, it's written all over you. Fear, determination, the look of a man about to do something dangerous. I'll be fine. That's what they all say. He met Lena at Sterling's address, a mansion in the hills, all glass and steel and obscene wealth. Her car was already there, parked on the street. She was sitting behind the wheel, staring at the house. Last chance to back out, Ethan said, sliding into the passenger seat. Not a chance. She held up her phone. Recording app ready. I'm going to knock on his door, tell him I know everything, and see what happens. That's not a plan. That's barely an idea. You have a better one? Not really. They walked up the driveway together, footsteps echoing on expensive stone. The house loomed above them, lit from within, looking more like a fortress than a home. Lena rang the doorbell. Sterling answered himself. No staff, no witnesses. He was in casual clothes, scotch in hand, looking every inch the relaxed billionaire, until he saw who was at his door. Lena, Cole, this is unexpected. We need to talk, Lena said, about Cyprus, about Singapore, about the network you've been building using my company's platform. Something flickered across Sterling's face. Not quite fear, more like calculation. I have no idea what you're talking about. Yes, you do. We have the financial records, the corporate filings, everything connecting you to the shell companies Chen was working with. That's absurd. Chen was a rogue employee. Who was working for you? Who was following your orders? Who's now in federal custody claiming I set him up because you told him to say that? Sterling's expression hardened. You should leave, now, before you say something you'll regret. Is that a threat? It's advice. From someone who's been playing this game a lot longer than you have. He took a sip of scotch. You're a smart woman, Lena. Smart enough to know when you're outmatched. Walk away. Plead guilty to a lesser charge. Do a couple years minimum security. You'll still be young when you get out, still have your whole life ahead of you. And if I don't? Then you spend the next decade fighting charges you'll never beat. Your company gets dismantled. Your employees lose their jobs.
Your reputation gets destroyed, and at the end of it all, you still go to prison. He smiled. Or you could accept my offer. Walk away. Let this go. And maybe I make sure the federal charges disappear. Why would you do that? Because you're not my enemy. You're just in the way. Move, and we both get what we want. Ethan watched this play out, recording everything on his own phone hidden in his jacket pocket. Sterling was confident. Too confident. Like he'd already won. What about the 47 million people whose data was stolen? Lena asked quietly. Do they get anything in this deal? They get to move on with their lives, change some passwords, file some reports. Forget this ever happened. Sterling shrugged. Nobody actually got hurt, Lena. This was always just about access, information, the ability to move markets and influence outcomes. No violence, no real harm. Just control. Exactly. And you could be part of it. Use your genius for something that actually matters. Help build the future instead of clinging to outdated ideas about privacy and user rights. User rights aren't outdated. They're fundamental. They're obstacles. And obstacles get removed, one way or another. He set down his glass. Last chance. Walk away or get crushed. Your choice. Here's my choice. Lena held up her phone, showing the recording. You just confessed to conspiracy, fraud, and about 6 other federal crimes, and we have witnesses. Sterling's face went blank. Then he lunged. What happened next was chaos. Sterling grabbed for Lena's phone. She jerked back. Ethan stepped between them. Sterling threw a punch, clumsy, desperate, that caught Ethan on the jaw. They went down together, crashing into expensive furniture. Run, Ethan shouted at Lena. Get out! But she didn't run. She stood there, phone still recording, capturing everything. Sterling scrambled away, reaching for something on a side table. A gun. Small, silver, probably expensive. He pointed it at Lena with shaking hands. Give me the phone. No. I'll shoot you. I swear to... You won't. Lena's voice was steady. Because if you do, you prove everything we're saying. You become a murderer instead of just a white-collar criminal. And that's a line even you won't cross. You don't know what I'll do? Yes, I do. You're a coward, Robert. A rich coward who hides behind lawyers and shell companies and other people's crimes. But you're not a killer. You don't have it in you. They stared at each other for a long moment. Ethan slowly got to his feet, ready to rush Sterling if he so much as twitched. Then Sterling lowered the gun. It doesn't matter, he said quietly. The recording doesn't matter. I'll claim you edited it, fabricated it. My lawyers will tie you up in court for years, and in the meantime, the federal charges stick. You still lose. Maybe, Lena said. Or maybe I take this straight to the press. Every network, every journalist. Make it so public you can't bury it. Force the FBI to investigate you instead of me. And destroy what's left of your company in the process. I don't care about the company. I care about the truth. Sterling laughed, but it sounded hollow. You really are that naive. That idealistic. Your father was right about you. My father was wrong about everything that mattered, just like you are. Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, saw Mrs. Chen's name, felt panic spike through his chest. I have to go, he said to Lena. Maya, go. I'll handle this. I'm not leaving you alone with him. I'll be fine. Go to your daughter. She needs you more than I do right now. Ethan hesitated, torn between 2 impossible choices. Then he saw Lena's expression, determined, fearless, absolutely certain, and knew she meant it. He ran. The drive home took forever and no time at all. Mrs. Chen met him at the door, face pale. She woke up asking for you, started crying, saying she had a bad dream that you weren't coming back. The old woman's voice was shaking. She's terrified, Mr. Cole. Absolutely terrified. And I couldn't tell her where you were or when you'd be home because I didn't know. Ethan pushed past her, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Maya was in his bed, curled around his pillow, tears streaming down her face. When she saw him, she let out a sob that broke his heart into pieces. Daddy! He gathered her up, held her tight, felt her small body shaking. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. You promised you'd stay. I know, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. She cried for a long time, hiccuping sobs that gradually quieted into sniffles. He rocked her, whispered reassurances, hated himself for every choice that had led to this moment. Eventually, she fell back asleep, exhausted from emotion and fever. Ethan laid her gently on the bed, covered her with blankets, sat watching her breathe. His phone buzzed. A text from Lena. Sterling called his lawyers. They're coming after us with everything, but I'm not backing down. Whatever happens, thank you for tonight. For everything. He stared at the message, thinking about the choice he'd made. The choice he kept making. Maya or the world? His daughter or strangers who needed protecting? There was no good answer. But looking at Maya's tear-stained face, feeling the weight of her trust and fear and love, Ethan realized something. He'd been choosing wrong this whole time. The world had other protectors, other people who could fight the good fight. But Maya only had him, and she needed him more than Lena did, more than 47 million users did, more than anyone. He typed back, I'm done. I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. My daughter has to come first. The response came immediately. I understand. Take care of her. She's lucky to have you. Then, for what it's worth, you're one of the good ones, Cole. Don't forget that. Ethan set down his phone and climbed into bed beside Maya, careful not to wake her. She stirred anyway, instinctively curling against him, seeking the comfort only a parent could provide. Love you, Daddy, she mumbled in her sleep. Love you too, kiddo. More than anything. Outside, the world kept turning. Sterling was probably calling in favors. Lena was probably preparing for war. The FBI was probably building their case. And somewhere, 47 million people were going about their lives, unaware of the battles being fought on their behalf. But in this room, in this moment, none of that mattered. All that mattered was the small, warm weight of his daughter, the rise and fall of her breathing, the absolute trust she placed in him despite all his failures. He'd fought in wars, stopped terrorists, saved lives, built a career on being the person who showed up when it mattered. But maybe the most important fight wasn't out there in the world. Maybe it was right here, in this bed, with this child who needed him to just be her father. Maybe that was enough. It had to be. The next morning arrived with weak sunlight and the realization that walking away didn't actually solve anything. Maya's fever had broken sometime during the night, and she woke up asking for pancakes and cartoons like nothing had happened. Kids were resilient like that. Ethan wished he could say the same about himself. His phone had 17 missed calls. 12 were from numbers he didn't recognize. 3 were from Lena. 2 were from a law firm he'd never heard of. He ignored all of them and made pancakes. Daddy, you're burning them, Maya observed from her perch at the kitchen counter. I know. You're also making your worried face. I don't have a worried face. Yes, you do. Your eyebrows get all scrunchy. She demonstrated, wrinkling her forehead in an exaggerated expression that would have been funny if it wasn't so accurate. Ethan flipped a pancake that was definitely beyond saving. Okay, maybe I'm a little worried. About work? Sort of. Is it the lady, Lena? He glanced at her, surprised. What makes you think it's about Lena? Because you talked about her in your sleep, said her name like 4 times. Maya swung her legs, matter of fact. Do you like her? It's complicated. That's what grown-ups say when the answer is yes, but they don't want to admit it. When did you become an expert on grown-ups? I'm 6, I know everything. She'd said that before. It was becoming a theme. The doorbell rang before Ethan could respond. Through the window, he could see a black sedan parked on the street. Government plates. His stomach sank. Stay here, he told Maya. Keep eating. Is it the bad people? There are no bad people. You're lying again. Your voice gets funny when you lie. He opened the door to find Agent Morrison and Agent Patterson, looking even more tired than they had yesterday. Morrison held up a tablet. We need you to look at something, he said without preamble. I told you, I'm not talking without a lawyer. This isn't about you, not directly. Patterson pulled up a video on the tablet. This was delivered to our office 2 hours ago, anonymously, from an encrypted server we can't trace. She hit play. It was the recording from Sterling's house. All of it. Sterling admitting to the conspiracy, to framing Lena, to using Hart's platform for the shadow network, the gun, the threats, everything. Ethan's blood went cold. Where did you get this? Like she said, anonymous delivery, along with about 600 pages of financial documentation, corporate filings, communication logs, and a signed affidavit from David Chen recanting his previous testimony. Morrison studied Ethan's face. You know anything about this? No. Really? Because your voice is in this recording, your face is partially visible, and Ms. Hart explicitly references you by name. Ethan chose his words carefully. I may have been present when this conversation took place, but I didn't send you that recording. Then who did? I have no idea. Patterson exchanged a glance with Morrison. Here's the situation, Mr. Cole. This recording is problematic. It was obtained without consent, possibly through illegal means. Sterling's lawyers are already screaming entrapment. Normally, we couldn't use any of this in court. But, Ethan prompted, but the financial documentation is legitimate, and Chen's new testimony is backed up by phone records, emails, and bank transfers we can verify independently, so we have enough to investigate Sterling without the recording. Morrison paused, which means the charges against you and Ms. Hart are being dropped, effective immediately. The relief was so sudden, Ethan actually swayed. Dropped. Sterling's under arrest. We're executing search warrants on his properties right now. And we're opening investigations into the 17 companies connected to his network. Patterson took back the tablet. You and Ms. Hart are free to go. But we'll need you to testify when this goes to trial. Yeah, of course. And Mr. Cole? Next time you want to investigate a billionaire, maybe don't break into his house and threaten him at gunpoint. We didn't threaten him. He pulled the gun. That's what the recording shows. But it's still a monumentally stupid thing to do. You're lucky you didn't get shot or arrested yourselves. They left, taking their government sedan and their warnings with them. Ethan stood in the doorway, watching them go, trying to process what had just happened. Someone had sent the recording. Someone had compiled all the evidence. Someone had built an airtight case against Sterling and delivered it to the FBI in a way that couldn't be ignored. There was only one person who could have done that. He called Lena. She answered on the first ring. You heard. The FBI just left, said the charges are dropped, said they have Sterling in custody. I know. They told me about an hour ago. Lena, what did you do? What needed to be done? I took the recording, compiled the evidence, and made sure it got into the right hands. Her voice was steady, resolved. Sterling was right about one thing. My company was going to get destroyed anyway. The stock was in freefall. Investors were pulling out. It was already over. So you decided to go down swinging. I decided that if I was going down, I was taking him with me and making sure everyone knew the truth. She paused. I also decided something else. The company's done, Cole. Even with Sterling exposed, even with our names cleared, Hart Technologies is finished. Too much damage, too many lawsuits, too many people who'll never trust us again. I'm sorry. Don't be. I built something good. It lasted 6 years. That's more than most people get. She sounded tired, but not defeated. And you know what? I'd rather lose everything doing the right thing than keep everything by compromising. My father never understood that. But I think you do. Yeah, I do. How's Maya? The question caught him off guard. Better. Fever's gone. She's eating pancakes and asking uncomfortable questions about my feelings. Lena laughed. It sounded genuine. Smart kid. The smartest. He watched Maya through the doorway, chocolate chips smeared across her face, oblivious to the adult world and its complications. Listen, about last night, I'm sorry I left you there. You should have done exactly what you did. Maya needed you. That's not something to apologize for. Still, feels like I abandoned you. You didn't. You made a choice. The right choice. And honestly, her voice softened. It reminded me what actually matters. Not companies or stock prices or being right, just people. The ones we love. The ones who depend on us. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. I have to go, Lena said finally. Lawyers are calling, press conferences to plan, the whole circus. But Cole, thank you for everything. For being honest. For caring when you didn't have to. For showing me that some people still believe in doing the right thing. You're one of those people, Lena. Maybe, but I learned it from watching you." She hung up before he could respond. Ethan stood there for a long moment, phone in hand, feeling something shift inside him, something fundamental, like a door closing and another one opening simultaneously. "Daddy?" Maya's voice pulled him back. "Your pancakes are definitely burned now." He went back to the kitchen, scraped the ruined pancakes into the trash, started over. This time he paid attention. This time he got it right. The next 2 weeks were strange. The media exploded with the Sterling story. Billionaire arrested for conspiracy, shadow networks, data theft on an unprecedented scale. Hart Technologies announced its closure, though Lena made sure every employee got severance and job placement assistance. The stock became worthless paper. Investors lost millions, but 47 million users got the truth. And Sterling got handcuffs. Ethan went back to his regular contract work, picking up projects that let him be home by dinner, turning down anything that required overnight hours. He helped Maya with homework, went to parent-teacher conferences, built another volcano for her friend Sophie's science project, because apparently word had gotten around that Maya's dad was good at that sort of thing. It was normal, quiet, exactly what he'd wanted. So why did it feel incomplete? The answer came 3 weeks later, in the form of Lena Hart showing up at his door on a Saturday morning, wearing jeans and a sweater that made her look less like a CEO and more like a person. "Hi," she said. "Hi. Can I come in?" He stepped aside, suddenly aware that his house was a mess and he was wearing yesterday's shirt. Maya was at a birthday party, which meant they were alone, which felt significant somehow. Lena looked around the living room, taking in the crayon drawings on the walls, the pile of laundry on the chair, the evidence of life being actively lived. "I like your place," she said. "It feels real." That's one word for it. I usually go with chaotic. Real is better than perfect. She sat on the couch without waiting for an invitation, and Ethan found himself sitting beside her, maintaining a careful distance that felt both necessary and ridiculous. "So," he said, "you're officially unemployed now." "Officially. Turns out closing a billion-dollar company takes a lot of paperwork." She smiled, but it was tired. "I spent the last 3 weeks in meetings with lawyers, accountants, investors, employees, making sure everyone landed okay, making sure the technology got transferred to companies that would actually protect it, making sure Sterling's network got completely dismantled." Sounds exhausting. It was. But it's done now. All of it. The company's dissolved. The employees have new jobs. The lawsuits are settled. I'm free. She looked at him. Which is terrifying, actually. I haven't been free since I was 22. I don't know what to do with it. Join the club. I've been free my whole adult life, and I still have no idea what I'm doing. That's comforting. I'm very comforting. Ask Maya. She'll tell you I'm terrible at it. Lena laughed, and the sound filled something in Ethan he hadn't realized was empty. "I came here to ask you something," she said after a moment. "And you can say no. Actually, you should probably say no. It's a terrible idea." Now I'm intrigued. I'm starting something new. Not a company, at least not yet. More like a project, a consultancy maybe, helping other tech companies build actual security, ethical security. The kind that protects users instead of exploiting them. She turned to face him fully. "And I want you to be part of it, as a partner, equal stake, equal say. No more contractor work for scraps. Real partnership." Ethan stared at her. "You want to go into business together. I want to build something that matters. With someone I trust. Someone who won't compromise when things get hard. Someone who—" She stopped, searching for words. "Someone who makes me want to be better, braver, more honest." "Lena, I know it's complicated. You have Maya. You have responsibilities. You've already sacrificed too much for my problems. But I'm not asking you to sacrifice anything. I'm asking you to build something where we can both be who we are. Where you can be a father and a professional. Where I can be a CEO and a person. Where we don't have to choose between doing the right thing and having a life." That's a nice dream. It's more than a dream. It's a choice. The same choice we've been making all along. Just this time, we make it together. Ethan wanted to say yes. Wanted it so badly, it scared him. But he thought about Maya, about broken promises, about all the times work had come first. I can't be your partner and Maya's father, not the way both of those things deserve. What if you could? Lena leaned forward. What if we built something flexible, where you work from home most days, where you can pick Maya up from school and help with homework and be there for dinner, where you get to be present for her life instead of always choosing between her and everything else? Companies don't work that way. My company did. My people had lives, families, obligations, and we built something incredible anyway. She paused. You think because you're a single parent, you have to settle for less. Do work that fits around the edges. But what if you didn't? What if you found something that fit your whole life instead of forcing you to split yourself in half? You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's possible. And it's what I want. Not just a business partner, a real partner, someone who challenges me, someone who makes me laugh at 2 a.m. while we're fixing impossible problems. Someone who... She stopped abruptly, like she'd said too much. Ethan studied her face, saw vulnerability there that she usually kept hidden, saw hope and fear mixing together. This isn't just about business, he said quietly. No, it's not. Lena, I know, it's too fast, too complicated. You barely know me. I barely know you. And you have Maya to think about, and I have no idea how to be in someone's life, let alone a kid's life. But Cole, Ethan, I haven't felt this alive in years, since I started the company, maybe since ever, and I think you feel it too. He did. That was the problem. Maya comes first, he said finally. Always. That's non-negotiable. I wouldn't want it any other way. And I'm a mess. Ask Mrs. Chen. Ask anyone. I burn pancakes and forget to do laundry, and sometimes I stay up until 3 a.m., working on problems that don't matter because it's easier than dealing with real life. Sounds familiar? And I'm still figuring out how to be a single parent, how to fill the space Sarah left, how to be enough for a kid who deserves 2 parents. Lena reached across the careful distance between them and took his hand. You are enough. More than enough. Maya knows that. I know that. Maybe you should know it too. Ethan looked at their joined hands, thought about all the reasons this was a bad idea, thought about all the ways it could go wrong. Then he thought about Maya's voice asking if he liked Lena, about the way Lena had trusted him with her company, her crisis, her truth, about 2 people who'd found each other in the middle of chaos and somehow made each other better. Okay, he said. Okay? Yeah. Let's build something together. But we do it right, slow. We start with the business. See if we can actually work together without killing each other. And if that works, he squeezed her hand. We see what happens next. That's the most cautious agreement to a partnership I've ever heard. I'm a cautious person. No, you're not. You broke into my office at midnight to stop a data breach. That was different. That was work. And this isn't? He smiled. Not entirely. They worked out the details over coffee, sitting at Ethan's kitchen table, sketching out business plans and client lists and office logistics. It felt right in a way Ethan couldn't explain, natural, like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. I want to meet her, Lena said suddenly. Maya, officially, not as your business partner, as someone who's going to be in your life, in both your lives. You don't have to. I want to, if that's okay. If you think she'd be okay with it. Ethan thought about his daughter's uncanny ability to see through adult nonsense. She'll probably interrogate you about your intentions. Good. She should. The birthday party ended at 2. Ethan picked up Maya, who was covered in cake and buzzing with sugar, and brought her home to find Lena still sitting at the kitchen table, looking more nervous than she'd ever looked in any boardroom. Maya, you remember Ms. Hart? Maya stopped mid-bounce, studied Lena with serious eyes. You're the lady from Daddy's work. I am, but you can call me Lena. Okay. Maya climbed onto a chair, getting frosting on the table. Are you my dad's girlfriend? Maya. Ethan's face went hot. What? I'm just asking. Lena laughed. Not yet, but I'm hoping to be his friend. Is that okay with you? Do you like him? I do, very much. Do you make him happy? I hope so. Does he seem happy to you? Maya considered this with the seriousness of a federal judge. Yeah, he smiles more now, and he doesn't make his worried face as much. Then I'm doing something right. Do you like kids? I'm not sure. I haven't spent much time around them, but I like you so far. I'm pretty great, Maya agreed with zero modesty. Do you know how to build volcanoes? No, but I'd like to learn. That, apparently, sealed the deal. Maya launched into an explanation of volcanic chemistry that was probably 60% wrong, but delivered with absolute confidence. Lena listened like it was a doctoral thesis, asking questions, genuinely engaged. Ethan watched them, feeling something shift inside his chest, something that felt like hope, like possibility, like maybe the life he'd been trying to build alone didn't have to stay that way. Later, after Maya had given Lena a complete tour of the house and shown her every single crayon drawing on the walls after they'd eaten dinner together, takeout pizza that nobody burned, after Maya had finally gone to bed, Ethan walked Lena to her car. Thank you, she said, for today, for saying yes, for letting me into your life. Thank you for asking. Maya's wonderful. You're doing an incredible job with her. Most days I'm just faking it and hoping she doesn't notice. That's all any of us are doing. The faking it part, trying to figure it out as we go. They stood in the driveway, neither quite ready to say goodbye, the evening stretching out soft and quiet around them. I should go, Lena said, not moving. Yeah, probably. We're starting this Monday? The consultancy? Monday. I'll work from home most days, come to the office for meetings. We'll figure out a schedule that works. We'll figure it out, she agreed. Then carefully, she leaned in and kissed his cheek. Brief, chaste, terrifying. Good night, Ethan. Good night. He watched her drive away, touched his cheek where she'd kissed him, felt like an idiot teenager with a first crush. Inside, Maya was supposed to be asleep. Was definitely not asleep. She's nice, Maya announced from the top of the stairs. You're supposed to be in bed. I am in bed. I'm just not asleep. There's a difference. She came down a few steps. Do you like her? Like really like her? Yeah, kiddo. I really like her. Good. Because she really likes you too. I can tell. Oh yeah, how? She looks at you the way Mommy used to, in the pictures, like you're the best thing she's ever seen. Ethan's throat tightened. You remember your mom? Not really, just from pictures and stories you tell me, but I remember feeling safe and loved and like everything was going to be okay. She sat on the step, suddenly looking much older than 6. Lena makes you feel like that. I can tell. So it's okay if you like her. I won't be sad. Come here. She came down the rest of the stairs and he pulled her into a hug, holding his daughter, feeling the weight of her trust and love and resilience. Your mom would have liked Lena, he said quietly. She always said I needed someone who'd call me on my nonsense. What's nonsense? The stuff I do when I'm being dumb. You do that a lot. I know. But you're still the best dad ever. Even when I mess up, especially then, because you try to fix it. That's what matters. She hugged him tighter and Ethan thought about Sarah, about the time they'd had and the time they'd lost, about the daughter they'd made together who was somehow wiser than both of them combined. I love you, Maya. I love you too, Daddy. Now can I please stay up and watch one more episode? Please? He laughed. One episode. Then bed. For real this time. Deal. They watched cartoons together on the couch, Maya falling asleep halfway through despite her protests, and Ethan sat there thinking about the past few weeks, about everything that had happened, about the choice he'd almost made to walk away from all of it. He'd thought protecting Maya meant keeping her separate from the chaos, shielding her from complications, giving her a simple, stable life. But maybe that was wrong. Maybe protecting her meant showing her that life was messy and complicated, and sometimes you had to fight for what mattered. That doing the right thing was hard, but worth it. That you could be scared and brave simultaneously. That you could fall down and get back up. That you could lose everything and still build something new. Maybe the best thing he could give her wasn't perfection. Just presence. Just showing up. Just being there even when it was hard. And maybe, just maybe, showing her that it was okay to let other people in. To build a life that had room for more than just the two of them. To take a chance on something good even when you were scared it might fall apart. His phone buzzed, a text from Lena. I can't stop thinking about today. About you, about the possibility of us. Is it too soon to say that? Probably, but I'm saying it anyway. He typed back, not too soon. I've been thinking the same thing. Good. Because I'm terrified and excited and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I want to figure it out with you. Same. All of that. Same. Monday then. Partners. Partners. He set down his phone and looked at Maya, peaceful in sleep, trusting him completely. Thought about Lena driving home to her empty penthouse, probably working on business plans, probably terrified, probably hopeful. Thought about the future they were about to build. The consultancy. The partnership. The possibility of something more. It wouldn't be perfect. There would be late nights and difficult clients and moments of doubt. There would be times when being a father and a partner and a person who mattered in the world felt impossible to balance. But for the first time in 4 years, since Sarah died and left him alone with a 2-year-old and no idea what he was doing, Ethan felt like maybe he didn't have to do it alone. Maybe he'd found someone who understood that doing the right thing mattered more than doing the easy thing. Someone who'd choose integrity over convenience. Someone who'd sit at his kitchen table and plan a business and let his daughter interrogate her about her intentions. Someone who made him want to be braver, better, more present. Someone who made him feel alive again. 6 months later, Cole & Hart Security Consultants had 15 clients, 3 employees, and an office that was actually just Ethan's converted garage because neither of them saw the point in expensive overhead. The work was good, meaningful. They helped companies build security that actually protected users instead of exploiting them. They turned down clients who wanted them to compromise. They made enough to live on, and not so much that they lost sight of why they were doing it. And slowly, carefully, the partnership became something more. It started with working dinners that turned into actual dinners, business meetings that ended with personal conversations, emails about client projects that included inside jokes and references to things only they understood. Maya approved, vocally, frequently. She'd taken to calling Lena Dad's person, which neither of them corrected because it was accurate enough. Lena started coming to school events, helped with science projects, learned to make pancakes that weren't burned, fit into their lives like she'd always been there, filling spaces Ethan hadn't realized were empty. It wasn't perfect. They argued about business decisions, about parenting approaches, about whether it was acceptable to work past midnight when you had morning commitments. They disagreed on client strategies and marketing approaches and whether the office needed actual furniture or if camping chairs were sufficient, but they showed up for each other, every time. When Maya had a nightmare, Lena was there in the morning with hot chocolate and bad jokes. When Ethan doubted himself, wondered if he was failing at everything, Lena reminded him of all the ways he wasn't. When Lena got overwhelmed by the pressure of starting over, building something new from ashes, Ethan sat with her and helped her remember why they were doing this. They were partners, in every sense of the word. The first time Lena stayed overnight, in the guest room, because they were taking things slow, because Maya's stability mattered more than their impatience. Maya made her breakfast. Burned toast and undercooked eggs that Lena ate with absolute seriousness, claiming it was the best meal she'd ever had. "She's lying," Maya whispered to Ethan. "But she's nice about it." "That's how you know she's good people." "I like her, Daddy. You should marry her." "We're taking it slow, kiddo." That's what grown-ups say when they're scared, but doing it anyway. She'd learned that phrase from him, heard it enough times to parrot it back. And she was right. He was scared, terrified actually, of screwing this up, of losing what they'd built, of hurting Maya if things fell apart. But he was doing it anyway. Because Lena was worth it. Because the life they were building together, messy and imperfect and real, was worth it. Because showing up scared was better than not showing up at all. On a quiet evening in late spring, almost exactly 1 year after he'd burst into Lena's office at midnight and changed everything, Ethan sat on his back porch watching Maya and Lena attempt to build a garden. They were both covered in dirt, arguing good-naturedly about whether tomatoes needed full sun or partial shade, completely absorbed in the task. His phone had no emergency alerts, no FBI calling, no crises demanding his immediate attention. Just this. Just an evening with people he loved, doing something simple and good. Lena looked up, caught him watching, smiled. She said something to Maya, who giggled, and then walked over to join him on the porch. "Hey," she said, sitting beside him close enough that their shoulders touched. "Hey yourself." "Maya says we're doing it wrong. The garden. Apparently we need to consult YouTube." "She's probably right. She usually is." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Maya dig holes with more enthusiasm than accuracy. "I've been thinking," Lena said quietly, "about this. Us. Everything we've built." Ethan's heart rate picked up. "Yeah?" "I'm happy. Actually happy. Not just successful or accomplished or any of those other words I used to measure my life by. Just happy. Because of you, because of her, because of this life we're making together. I'm happy too." "Good." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Because I'd like to keep doing this. For a long time, if that's okay with you." "More than okay. Even though I'm terrible at gardening and burn dinner more often than not, and sometimes I work too late and forget to call, even though all of that, even though I still don't really know how to be in a relationship or be a parent figure or any of the things normal people know how to do, none of us know how to do this stuff, Lena. We're all just faking it and hoping it works out." She lifted her head, looked at him with those eyes that had first caught his attention in a midnight office a year ago. "I love you, Ethan Cole. Just so you know." In case that wasn't obvious. His breath caught. They hadn't said it yet, had danced around it for months, both too scared to be the first one to make it real. "I love you too," he said, and felt something settle into place, something that had been waiting to be acknowledged. "I have for a while. Just didn't know how to say it. We're both terrible at this. The worst." She kissed him then, soft and certain, and it felt like coming home. Like everything he'd been through, the military, losing Sarah, raising Maya alone, the chaos with Heart Technologies, all of it had been leading to this moment, this person, this life. "Gross," Maya called from the garden. "You guys are being mushy." They broke apart laughing. "Sorry, kiddo," Ethan called back. "No, you're not. You're smiling like a weirdo." She went back to her digging. "But it's okay. I like when you smile." Later that night, after they'd finished the garden, incorrectly according to YouTube, after they'd made dinner together and ate on the back porch while the sun set, after Maya had gone to bed with dirt still under her fingernails and dreams of tomatoes in her head, Ethan and Lena sat in the living room planning their next business quarter. It was mundane, ordinary. Exactly the kind of quiet evening that used to make Ethan feel trapped, and now made him feel grateful. "I was thinking," Lena said, reviewing their client list, "what if we did something different next year? Not just consulting, maybe teaching. Workshops for smaller companies who can't afford our full services. Make security accessible instead of exclusive. That's a terrible business model." "I know, but it's the right thing to do." He looked at her, at this woman who'd lost billions choosing integrity over profit, who'd walked away from everything rather than compromise, who'd built a new life from scratch, and somehow made room in it for him and his daughter and their chaotic, beautiful mess. "Yeah," he said, "let's do it." "You didn't even think about it." "Don't need to. If you think it's right, that's good enough for me." She set down her laptop, moved closer, took his hand. "We're really doing this. Building something that matters. Being happy. Having a life. Seems like it. I keep waiting for it to fall apart. For something to go wrong. Something will probably go wrong eventually. That's life. But we'll handle it. Together." "Together," she repeated, like testing the word. "I like the sound of that." "Me too." Maya appeared in the doorway, supposed to be asleep, definitely not asleep. "I had a question," she announced. "Of course you did," Ethan said. "What is it?" "If Lena stays here all the time and works with you and eats dinner with us and helps with my homework, does that make her family?" Ethan and Lena exchanged glances. "I think so, yeah," Ethan said carefully. "If that's okay with you." "It's okay with me." Maya climbed onto the couch between them. "I like having more family. It's better than just us." "Just us was pretty good, though," Ethan said. "Yeah, but this is better. Because you're not sad anymore, and you laugh more, and you don't make your worried face all the time." When did you get so observant? I'm 6. I notice everything.
She curled up between them, content and sleepy, and Ethan caught Lena's eye over his daughter's head, saw the tears there, the joy, the overwhelming gratitude for this moment, this life, these people who'd somehow become everything. Thank you, Lena mouthed. For what, he wanted to ask. But he knew. For letting her in, for trusting her with his daughter, for building a life that had room for all of them, for choosing to love again even when it was scary, for showing up that night at midnight and changing everything. Thank you, he mouthed back. Maya fell asleep between them, and they sat there together in the quiet of Ethan's small house, with its crayon drawings and burned pancakes and imperfect, beautiful chaos. Outside, the world kept turning. Sterling was serving 15 years for conspiracy and fraud. The shadow network had been dismantled. 47 million people had changed their passwords and moved on with their lives, mostly unaware of how close they'd come to disaster. But in this room, in this moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was Maya's peaceful breathing, Lena's hand in his, the future they were building together, one imperfect day at a time. What mattered was showing up, being present, choosing what was right over what was easy, building lives that had room for love and work and purpose and mess. What mattered was this. Ethan looked at his daughter, at the woman he loved, at the life he'd somehow stumbled into when he'd run upstairs at midnight to stop a data breach. He'd thought he was saving Lena's company that night. Turned out, they'd saved each other, and that was worth everything.